Here is a model of a cell membrane. The purpose of a cell membrane is to separate the inside of a cell, represented on this side, from the outside of the cell, represented on that side, and to regulate what comes in and out of a cell. The cell membrane is made up of a semi-permeable phospholipid bilayer, which are two layers of phospholipids. A phospholipid is represented by a red cup with tissue paper coming out. The red cup is the polar head of the phospholipid, which is negatively charged and hydrophilic, which means it loves water. The tissue paper are the two fatty acid tails of the phospholipid. They are nonpolar and hydrophobic, which means they do not like water. As you can see, the hydrophobic tails occupy the center area of the membrane. Water is not allowed to pass through. It gets stuck and it cannot pass through because it is polar, and the non-polar tails don't like the polar water molecules. So only small non-polar molecules such as O2, oxygen, can actually pass through. Larger molecules or polar molecules cannot pass through. So a larger molecule will get stuck, and a polar molecule cannot pass through because, as stated, the fatty acids are nonpolar and they are afraid of water. Because the phospholipid is made up of a hydrophilic part and a hydrophobic part, it is called amphipathic, meaning that part of it loves water and part of it doesn't like water, because part of it's polar and part of it's nonpolar. It can react with polar molecules or nonpolar molecules. Cholesterol, represented by the black tubes, exists within the cell membrane. Cholesterol is a lipid, and thus it is nonpolar, so it exists with the other nonpolar molecules within the cell membrane, such as the fatty acid tails of the phospholipids. Cholesterol is used to regulate how rigid and fluid the cell membrane is. It separates the phospholipids, making sure they don't get too compact and too rigid, but it also holds them together, making sure they don't get too fluid. Peripheral proteins, represented by these metal cups, are a non-permanent protein that can stick and attach itself to the outside of a cell membrane. It is detachable and reattachable in different areas, and it can act as enzyme to speed up reactions and also helps with cell shape. Integral proteins, such as this carrier protein or protein channel, allow larger and polar molecules to enter and exit the cell. The protein channel is an open channel in which you can put polar molecules and they will come out the other side. Another integral protein is a sodium-potassium pump. This pump starts open on the inside of the cell and allows 3 sodium to attach themselves to the activation site. Then it uses stored up potential energy to shift itself, allowing the sodium to exit. And now potassium can enter and attach itself to the other activation site. Using more energy, can shift back and get potassium into the cell. Now this pump pushes out sodium and brings in potassium. And this cycle happens over and over and over and over. Challenge question. The factory's chemical waste is, due to its liquid state, a solution of chemicals in water. Therefore, the molarity of the solution is higher than any freshwater lake because freshwater has very low molarity due to it being mostly water. Fish that live in freshwater lakes will have cells with the same molarity as the lake because of osmosis. because water wants to reach an equilibrium between semi-permeable membranes such as cells. Water will enter and exit the fish's cell membrane until equilibrium is achieved. Introducing a high molarity solution into the lake will increase the lake's molarity and make the fish hypertonic, meaning that the fish has more water in it than the solution around it, percentage-wise. Water percentage is inversely proportionate to molarity, because the larger the molarity, the more particles there will be in the water, meaning less of the total solution will be water. To reach equilibrium, the water in the fish's cells must move to the lake. If too much water leaves the fish's cells, they become shriveled. Here's an example. Shriveled. And could end up permanently damaging the cell. Additionally, some of the chemical solution will wind up being in the fish. And so any human that eats the fish will ingest potentially harmful chemicals.